Almost a fifth of Brits are turning to sobriety full-time, with the biggest growth being in under 25-year-olds. But the UK is still facing record-high alcohol-related deaths after a spike in harmful drinking during the pandemic. So is sobriety really on the rise, and how are former drinkers changing their habits? I'm Paul Brand, and this is what you need to know. Welcome to the podcast, where I'm joined by journalist and recovering alcoholic Toby Winson. Hi, Toby. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And it's so valuable, I think, to have a journalist making this special documentary for the Tonight programme, which is why we're talking about sobriety, who has personal experience. And the reason you're making this film is because you want to look at whether sobriety really is on the rise in the UK. Because anecdotally, I went home for Christmas and discovered more members of my family have now given up alcohol full time, not because they necessarily had alcohol dependency, but just because they want to be healthier. So is it on the rise? What have you kind of discovered through your investigations?
Yeah, so the way that we think about alcohol in this country is changing. We currently have about a fifth of the population who don't drink at all. And this movement, so to speak, is being driven by younger people, which I found quite surprising, actually.
Is that because they want to look better on social media, and it's like they're more health conscious and they're more image conscious? Yeah,
it's a number of things. And so interestingly, social media and podcasts, all those things came up so much when we were working on this programme. I think a lot of it is to do with their image, obviously. So, and that's to do with social media as well. They are more image conscious, but also, like you mentioned, they're health conscious as well. And not just that, but mental health conscious as well. And they're more aware of the negative impacts that alcohol can have.
And what about other demographics then? So younger people drinking less, but more people are dying every year from alcohol dependency. So that seems at odds with one another, doesn't it?
Yeah, so there's a lag from the pandemic. As you know, millions of people turned to drink during COVID when they were stuck at home and when they were stressed from the pandemic. People turned to drink, and millions of people were drinking at harmful levels. And unfortunately, I think we're still seeing a lag from that. And also, there are still millions of people out there who are drinking more than the recommended daily amount. And over time, that has an impact on your liver and eventually could lead to things like liver disease. And again, that can be fatal.
Tell me what your relationship with alcohol used to be like.
Yeah, so I'm in recovery from alcohol addiction. I've been sober for 8.5 years now, but my life used to be very, very different. I battled addiction for about 7 years. By the time I was 19, I was a full-blown alcoholic. But this was all a secret, like a lot of alcoholics out there. I kept it a secret for as long as I could, and I was drinking on my own every evening, 2-3 bottles of vodka. Initially I told myself that was normal, because in this country, I think we all do think it's normal, most of us anyway, to have a drink after work or in the evening.
Or to binge drink when you're young, and maybe you saw your friends doing that occasionally on a night out, to drink a large quantity, but not to do it in the way that you were doing it every night.
Yeah, but I sort of justified it in my head that everyone's doing it. Yeah. Everyone's having a drink after work, but I was drinking 3 bottles of vodka. Like, deep down I knew that wasn't normal. But I didn't ask for help, I didn't tell anyone, and it just gradually got worse and worse, and soon I was drinking in the mornings as well. So I would drink God knows how much vodka in the evening, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd be withdrawing from severe alcohol withdrawal, shaking, and so I started drinking in the morning as well. So it became a vicious cycle. Anyway, it went on and on for me, my battle with alcoholism. It didn't just destroy my life, it destroyed the life of all my family members as well. I always say that the family members of an addict are actually affected more than the addict themselves, because they feel all of the pain that the addict is feeling, but they also feel completely, totally and utterly helpless, because they can't stop that person from drinking or abusing. I went to rehab twice, at 23, then again at 25, and then eventually one day I walked past the mirror in the morning after I'd had my alcohol in the morning. I needed to stop me withdrawing, and I noticed the whites of my eyes had turned yellow. At this point, I was 25 years old. Eventually called an ambulance. They picked me up, took me to hospital, and they worked out pretty quickly that I had alcoholic liver disease. By that point, I was completely yellow and jaundice. I had also damaged the nerves in my feet and legs from drinking the alcohol. And they took me to King's Hospital in London, where they basically told me my liver had stopped working and there was talk of transplants. My dad even offered part of his liver to the consultancy if they could do something to give that to me to try and save me. And yeah, for a long time, for a good few weeks, it looked like I was going to die when I was in hospital then. Somehow, the amazing doctors and nurses worked their magic and they saved me, and I started getting better. But even at that point, I then went to rehab for another 3 months and came out of rehab and then drank for another 9 months before I actually got sober. So it's a miracle that I'm actually still here.
And how is it now? Because you've done an amazing job at staying sober. How do you find it day to day remaining sober?
Now, I actually find it relatively easy. That doesn't mean to say that one day I won't get a huge craving and I'm going to have to use all the tools that I've taught myself. So I stay sober by talking openly and honestly about my recovery and my addiction, like I'm doing now with you. I tell everyone about it. I'm extremely open about it, and that really helps me. I also rely heavily on things like routine and exercise and setting small goals. All of those things help me. But I know one day that might not be the case. And then if I do get a huge craving or I'm struggling, I know the first thing I need to do is talk to people about it. Because the worst thing that you can do is bottle it up.
So is there enough help for people out there, do you think? Are there resources available for people who maybe are alcohol dependent or perhaps just want to stop drinking because they don't like the effect it's having on their life at a lower level?
They're two different things, really. So people who are addicted to alcohol, there are services out there. There's groups like AA, and your local council will have an alcohol services that you can go to help. You can also go to your GP for help. So there is help out there, but you need to ask for it. You can't expect it to come to you. You just need to accept that you have a problem and ask for help. That is the most important thing. That's half the battle. Accept you have a problem, ask for help. But then when we're talking about people who just want to perhaps cut down or want to try sobriety, people who don't have an alcohol addiction, there has never been so much information out there as there is now. And I'm talking about social media, like I mentioned earlier, in podcasts, books. You just have to search for the word sober on Instagram, for example, and you will come across countless accounts where people are logging their journeys, offering advice and tips. It really is an evolution, and it's part of the reason why more people are getting sober, because there's so much information out there now.
And what can other people do to help people that were in your situation, for example? Is it a good idea, for example, not to drink? Or, if I was at a party and there are people in the room who have a difficult relationship with alcohol, is it better that just nobody at the party drinks and we all try and support one another? What could they do?
I think this is interesting because this comes down to sober stigma. So in the past, and I think this is improving now, there's often been a lot of stigma around people who don't drink just out of personal preference.
Yeah.
So say you go to meet all your friends in the pub and one of them says, I'm not going to drink tonight. Quite often in the past anyway, that person would get some stick from their friends saying...
There's so much social pressure. Oh, come on, let's just have one.
Yeah. I think people are starting to become more accepting of people's choices not to drink.
Yeah.
And actually thinking, if they're not drinking, maybe I won't drink today. That kind of is becoming a response that's instead of the more common response of, why aren't you drinking? Please, come on, everyone else is drinking, can you drink? So I think if people could just be more accepting of their friend's choice or their family member's choice, if they say, I don't want to drink this month or this night or whatever it may be, that really helps. Don't judge people. It's just if they decide they don't want to drink, let them not drink.
Okay. Well, Toby, thank you so much. Great advice and really interesting insight into your personal journey. And I know it's going to be a really great Tonight programme as well, looking at this broader issue in society. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And if you've been affected by anything you've heard, please visit our website, itv.com, where you can find more information on how to get support. Until next time, thanks for listening.